Welcome to sewing class. I'm Annette Julie, and we are continuing on with our practice stitch sample. In our last video, we went ahead and drew the bias lines, drew our half-inch lines. We had pressed this and blocked this and gotten this all ready to sew. Now with our sewing machine, let's go ahead and turn that on. Little light just came on, and we want to check your settings. I've already pre-threaded it. We are at 4 for tension. That's right in the middle here. It's not too much tension whatsoever for a normal project, and we're just doing a practice stitch. Here we're at 0, and this is for the stitch width, and we don't want a wide stitch. We don't want a zigzag. We don't want any kind of tricky hem. We want a straight stitch, so we're keeping this at 0 for the width of the stitch. Then we get over to this third dial, and this is the stitch length. This is stitches per inch. And here we have set this between 2 and 3, so we're at 2.5. And that gives us 10 to 12 stitches per inch. That's where we want this to be set. Very important. Also too, I don't know if you can see it, but right down here, I don't think it's very visible, this says 1. And I adjusted this with the knob here on the side. And 1 correlates over here with my straight stitch. So now we're going to end 2. Okay, so I can just change it back and forth. Very easy to change that. Let's go ahead and start sewing. We're going to move over and get a little bit of a better view. So I've gone ahead and checked my stitch. We're going to go forward and come off the edge. Lift up my presser foot, pull my thread legs out, trim short, my stitch is fine. Let's go ahead and start our sewing. We're going to start on the edge, maybe about 1/8 of an inch in if you need to. Right on that pencil line. Take a moment adjusting where you want it to be. Now we're going to go ahead and sew right on that pencil line. We're not going to use the back stitch. We're not going to go backwards. We're just going to go forwards. Go as slow as you need to. Now we're coming to the edge. You're going to go right up to the edge, and you're going to stop. And there's your first row of stitches. Let's go ahead and snip those threads nice and close. That looks great. Let's go on to our next. We're creating a border. We have the presser foot up, then it was down. We're using that presser foot lever. It's right here. Right behind. So presser foot is up. It's down now. Let's go ahead and start, there's no back stitch, so you're just starting straight. And you can use your hands to guide the fabric. Don't let your fingers get too close. When you're doing a, slow down, you're going to slow much more accurately. We're getting towards the end. And we're going to stop right there. We can do one more stitch if we want to. Press your foot lever up. Press your foot up. Trim those threads nice and close. Looks great. Let's go on to our next line. Get that presser foot down. Get the needle down. I'm lifting the presser foot up and I'm adjusting, and then I'm seeing where the needle is hitting, and I'm using the wheel, the upper wheel to my right hand, to walk that needle forward. And now we're sewing our line. It's a 1/2 inch in. Coming to the end, and we're just going to stop there right at the end. We're going to go ahead and trim those threads nice and close, and we're going to check out our nice straight line there, and we're going to do our last border before we do our bias. So let's get those thread legs behind, drop our presser foot down, let's get that needle nice and close to that line. And adjust if necessary. No back stitch, we're just going forward. Getting towards the end, let's slow down. If you need to, you can walk the last couple stitches by keeping your foot on the presser pedal and bringing the top wheel towards you, and that is called walking your last stitch so it doesn't run off the edge. Trim those threads nice and close. Make sure you trim them on both sides nice and close with your thread snipper or your embroidery scissor. Working on trimming all of our threads nice and close. That looks good. Now let's go ahead and sew our bias lines. I'm going to start right in that corner. We drop that needle down. No back stitch, we're just going forward. Make sure your hands are on both sides of the fabric. Do not pull when we're going on the bias. This is a naturally stretchy part of the fabric, the diagonal. And so it naturally wants to stretch. We have to be careful when we're sewing it to not stretch it. Coming to the end, you can go nice and slow or walk the last couple stitches. There, we're finished with that bias line. And we have not stretched our fabric out. We're trimming our threads nice and close. There's that diagonal line. Let's trim these threads on both sides. There's our diagonal bias line. Let's go ahead and do the next one. And we're almost finished with our first practice stitch. Let's adjust this. Let's get the needle to go right down where we want it to go. That looks great. Let's go ahead and start. We're going forward. Getting towards the end. Gonna go slow on our last couple stitches, and then we can just stop. Go ahead and trim our threads nice and close. And if you see any other little threads popping up, trim those too. Trim them at all corners and at both ends of the bias line. This project is almost finished. But with any good sewing, it's always advisable to press. So we're going to grab our little miniature ironing board, and we're going to give it a nice press on the seams with some steam. And if you see any more threads pop up, which I already did, you can go ahead and give those a nice little trim. Now we have finished with our practice stitch. I'm Annette Julie, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.